All right, everybody, welcome to Be Better Than You, where we are bringing hope closer to the heart. Today's guest is a good buddy of mine, Greg Stanback, and let me tell you just a quick story about how I met Greg, right? I am a part of a group of guys that I'm not from Pittsburgh. I grew up in Youngstown, but I'm a Pittsburgh Steeler fan. And so I'm a part of a group of traveling Pittsburgh Steeler fans, right? We go to at least one game a year. They invited me about 8 years ago, but Greg and a nice knit group of people have actually been traveling for what, Greg, about 14 years now?
Yeah, 14, maybe 15. I gotta do the math. It's been a
Okay.
minute.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I was blessed and fortunate to be invited to the group. And man, so Greg is just a great guy. When I first met Greg, I'm the planner, plotter type of guy that wants to go and do history. So I think the first place that we went when I went with them was San Diego. And man, we got to San Diego. I had a not necessarily an agenda because it was fun, but I wanted to see the coast. I wanted to do a whole bunch of things. And Greg was the guy that was just kicking it. Now, I didn't know Greg that well at that time. So I'm thinking, man, I don't know if this is my kind of guy, right? But then when one of the coordinators that had been coordinating the trip for all of those years said, "Hey, I'm kind of tired." Guess who was the first person that stepped up? Greg did, right? And so he put things together, he organized it. And so as we got a chance to know each other more and more over the years, I realized that he knows how to work just as hard and effectively as he does know how to play hard and effectively. So that's an important part. And I love my man Greg. Greg, how you doing?
I'm good, brother. How you doing today?
I am doing well, man. I'm doing well. So, because we want to keep these meetings to 30 minutes or so, let's jump right in. Is that okay?
That's 100%.
Okay,
That's
fantastic. Um, let's start with, right, just your upbringing and a little background in the Pittsburgh area, because a lot of people that may see this not only here in the United States but across the world, we were that steel belt growing up, and people I know think of Ohio as just cornfields and nothingness, right? And so sometimes Pittsburgh gets a bad rap as well. Tell me a little bit about Greg growing up.
Well, I just want to say thank you for that little intro and definitely how we met. You're a good man and everything, a man of character, and that's why I'm honored to be here on your show. And
Thank
uh,
you.
and blessings to you. But a little bit about me. Yes, I'm born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I graduated from a little small town called Aliquippa, PA. If you're a sport
Well,
fan, you might have heard about that a little bit. We produce some big popular names out of Aliquippa. And from there, I went on to Slippery Rock University, and that's where I met the group of friends that you mentioned earlier that
okay.
started the group for us Distiller game. Just a little brief history about that. It started, like I said, 15 years ago between three of us that were all still friends to this day. And it has grown to like 20, 30, 40, 50 people now.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I obviously met you through that group of brothers and sisters come together and join football for a weekend and everything. So from college, I moved out here to Florida. I'm in the Fort Lauderdale, Miramar area. I started out as a educator and teaching, which I still do, and
Okay.
then I got into coaching. I got in coaching when I first started down here, and I coached at the high school for about 15 years, and then I transferred from the high school to the college, Florida Memorial University, where I coached there for 17 years. So from there. From coaching, I just started a business called Results Led Life. Where we work on unlocking your potential, solving problems so that you can live better. So that's just a brief, short history of how I developed from, high school to college to a professional, and here I am right now. So that's a little bit about me.
Okay. Well, again, appreciate you being here. The college, right? I know a lot of the guys that are a part of the group were athletes in college. What did you
Yeah.
participate in? What sport?
Believe it or not, we were track athletes. I
Okay.
ran track at Slippery Rock. I ran for 3 years, and unfortunately, I got injured. And I was good enough, but I wasn't good enough to go to Olympics. And at that time, you got to be smart enough to know when to pivot. And I always had an interest in basketball. I was one of those people I was smart enough to play, but I wouldn't say I was good enough to play. I was the
Okay.
type of person that I was like, you know who to pass the ball to, And but I was really good on defense. I was with my quickness and my knowledge, I was
Yeah,
really good on
yeah.
defense. So because I had a knowledge of basketball, a love for the game, I started working with the women's team under Cheryl Kennedy. And that's where I got my first start of coaching women's basketball. And from there, from Slippery Rock University, it just led into the high school, into the college ranks. So I'm thankful for Coach Kenny giving me that opportunity as a student assistant way back when. So that's how it all developed.
Okay, man, fantastic, man. Changing and helping to shape lives, the younger lives on that high school and college area. And so that transitioned into doing it now full time after you've
Absolutely.
retired as a successful coach. We'll get into that a little bit.
Mhm.
Tell me, since this, information that we're sharing is about hope and bringing hope closer to the heart, tell me some of the challenges, one or two, however you want to share, right,
Mhm.
that you've overcome that that has been something that kept the hope for you or gave you hope and knowing that you can overcome challenges and make it through.
Well, I think there's one thing that I is part of the reason why I started the business that I have is a lot of times in our community, especially the Black community, we deal with a lot of things that it may be perceived as something else, perceived as something, but it's really something else. And one thing that I dealt with that a lot of people don't understand or wouldn't understand is based on my personality. Like you said, I'll be out there, whatever, is I dealt with shyness and anxiety. And a
Okay.
lot of people would have never, would, when they look at it, would never think of that.
No.
And with my anxiety that I dealt with, it was a matter of control. I always wanted to control my environment, control the things around me so that I can deal with that flight fear response.
Okay.
And believe it or not, I did not recognize this until maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Unfortunately, at that time, I went through a divorce. And through going that divorce, I was seeing a counselor, something else that I encourage anybody in our community to do. You got to get counseling. We got to stop looking at it as something bad or something wrong. We got to get professional help because our brain is just like a muscle in our body. We work out our muscle through training, walking. So you got to work out your brain, whether it's through meditation or just through talking to somebody that's an expert. So
Mhm.
through my counseling, I learned some things through my childhood and the way I was raised with a strict mother, a domineering mother, and things like that, that I used a mechanism of protection to protect myself and control, and it developed into worry. And I would worry to the point of I'm trying to solve problems rather than deal with problems as they come. And when I dealt with that, I was creating all these problems that really wasn't there. All these scenarios of things that are going to happen that really wasn't going to happen. But in your brain, you think of everything that can go wrong. So when it goes wrong, you can fight it. But half the time it doesn't go wrong. So there was a challenge for me of understanding that my worry came from being having anxiety. And I've learned how to deal with my anxiety through meditation, through breathing techniques, and more importantly, how I talk to myself. A lot of times we have these thoughts in our brain and we don't know how to talk to ourselves, or we talk to ourselves the way someone talked to us. And we don't do the positive affirmation that we need to get us to move forward, which is extremely important. And a lot of times in our community, we're raised a certain way. We're raised in a slave mentality, so to speak. Do this
Mhm.
because I said it. Don't change. Don't do this. It's very harsh, whatever. And we don't get a whole lot of love from that. So I had to learn how to love myself. I had to learn how to talk to myself so that I can be better for others.
Okay.
And that was a big thing for me is just learning how to deal with my anxiety. And first step was recognizing it. You got to recognize the problem if you want to solve the problem. If you do not recognize it, you're not going to solve it. You're just going to keep putting band-aids on it. So once I recognize that, you know what? This worry, this control is not good for me. It's a place of protection, but I don't need the protection. So once I learn how to recognize it and deal with it, things open up. The way I think now, the way I move now, when I tell you my brain sometimes is at ease, I can't explain it. So
Yeah.
a challenge for me is really overcoming that anxiety and letting go of control.
Okay. Okay. Wow. Man, listen, I heard a couple of things in there that resonated with me.
Mhm.
One, right? you talked about, and we want to talk about that as it relates to, the book that you have, honesty, being honest with ourselves. So, what
Mhm.
were some of the moments that helped you to recognize that your compensation and maybe being out there and having a good time and controlling your environment was an issue?
Well, because the honest part about it, I was masking it with something else. And that was the first thing to recognize what I was masking it with. And a lot of times people can do that, whether it's drugs or alcohol. It can be addictions to other things in life that are not good
Okay.
for you. And for me, I was really masking it and getting that affirmation from other things.
Okay.
And once I recognized and I was honest with myself, and since then I've been remarried, and she's helped me a lot.
Wonderful
And
lady.
yeah, you met her. She's a great woman.
Yeah.
And what she got me to recognize, it was okay to admit that I had a problem, be honest with it. Because as a man, I was like, I'm tough, I'm strong, I don't really have a problem. I can deal with it all by myself.
Mhm.
I had to be honest to recognize that I can't do this by myself. That it's okay to say that I need someone to affirm what I'm doing and what I'm going through, because I took that as a weakness. And one big thing that is so funny that people will know about me is they will say, he's so nice. He's so a nice guy. He's a perfect guy. He's a nice guy. And that used to bother me because I'm like, dang, I just don't want to be just called nice because I took nice as being soft. I
Okay.
took nice
Okay.
as
I
being
got you.
weak.
I
I
got you.
wasn't, and that was the wrong thing. But she got me to recognize that nice is good. I'm not soft. I'm not weak. I'm actually stronger because I'm able to be sensitive to some of those things. I'm able to recognize things that people can't recognize. But more importantly, I'm able to humble myself to a point to say that, you know what? I am wrong. I have an issue, and this is where the issues are. And that's one thing that helped me grow.
Nice.
If I would tell anybody anything, if you can humble yourself to a point that you know you're at a place where you can get help and be better, you're going to turn around a whole lot in your life.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Wow. You got the wheels turning, so I'm gonna already invite you back because I'm taking
Yes.
a couple notes over here about ideas. This conversation, okay, so maybe there wasn't a specific turning point, but one of the things that you mentioned is that somebody that loved you affirmed you, and you said, okay, man, this might be an issue. Let me take a look at it. So that honesty, right? That's
Yes.
important, important, important. And the other thing that I heard you say is in regards to learning how to talk to yourself, right? The way that some people are raised, not only in our community, but economically when we are compressed, right?
Hmm.
So, as a coach, did you talk to your players as an instructor? Do you talk to your students the way that maybe you were raised years ago by a previous generation?
Listen, when I tell you there's been a transformation in my life, and I thank God for it because I can't do this without God. I am a believer, and that's 100%. If anything, you can't do this
Sure.
by yourself. So when I talk about meditation, I'm also talking about prayer. So when I first started coaching, I was a jerk. When I first started coaching, I was tough. I was hard-nosed. I was no breaks. I was demanding. I wanted perfection. And I was successful doing it that way.
Okay.
But I wasn't successful at building relationships. So
Mhm.
what would happen is I would build players, but I wasn't building relationships. So therefore, when my players would leave and move on, I would find that they weren't having a good experience. So it started out as in a phase as I started coaching. As I got into my coaching and developing further and being a better coach, I took a stance on I wasn't going to curse. So I started with not cursing. Then I started with how I handle discipline and how I handle if a player's not doing what I want them to do. So I changed those things and I became more nurturing. I also changed up how getting to know my players Because before, when I first started coaching, it was like, I'm coaching, I'm the coach, I want to talk to you, I want to know nothing about you, I want to know about your family, we're here to play, we're here to win. And you can't do that, especially coaching women. And in coaching women, a lot of times I was the only black male father figure for a lot of my players because a lot of my players came from those type of homes.
Yeah.
And I was doing a disservice to them. And it wasn't till I saw a video of myself in practice is when it hit me. I was like, wow, that's what I look like. If someone else is to come in and watch me and see me, they would judge me, and I don't want to be judged that way. So literally, I made a 360 in how I coach and how I dealt with players, and I became more relationship based, more than player based. And once I did that, we actually had more success.
Nice.
We actually won more games. I had more development out of my players, and more importantly, I built better relationships with my players. So yeah, I had to make that change because of what I knew and what I thought was the right way of coaching
Yeah.
to area of love, understanding. You know, as coaches, we always say that I'm not your friend, I'm friendly. And it's a way we would tell players that, hey, I'm not your friend, I'm your coach. I have some leadership authority over you, which you got to have. So I would still say that, but I'll also give the caveat of teaching them what it meant to be friendly, meaning that I'm your friend in this aspect. If you need something, you need someone to talk to you, or if you need help, I'm here for you. But
Okay.
I'm not going to hang out with you at a party or whatever. That's what you do with your friends. I'm your friend on this level. So that was a change for me. So it's funny that you mentioned that. It
Yeah.
was definitely a change in my coaching career.
Yeah. 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 So for everybody that's listening, quit cussing at your kids, your grandkids, or whatever,
Yep,
right?
100%.
They're
100%.
they're sponges, right? But again, another conversation. But I love how you had that honesty, right? The awareness. Somebody pointed out somebody had loved you and affirmed you, and it's not like
Mhm.
your parents and our parents don't do that. They just learned from a different way. You tied it to the way that, our slave mentality. A lot of people, because we were just told what to do, how to do, don't do, you're not allowed.
Mhm.
Changing that now, right? So
100%.
recognizing that, being loved and affirmed by somebody and having that courage to do
Mhm.
so is important. And then you had that 360 where you said, let me do something different because what we get results a lot of times through relationships. That was
Yes.
huge. That was a huge transformation. Um,
Yes.
so man, you've proven you've grown through some things, right? So if we can, let's talk about the principles that you have in, I know you've written a book, right? And you have
Mhm.
7 principles in that book. And the seventh one is about reflection, right? And
Mhm.
assessment and honesty. That's where you started, right?
Yes.
So let's talk about some of the principles in your book. Why even the book came about and what we can gain from that.
Well, the book that I have is an ebook, uh, Mental Toughness, mental toughness for everyday life. The reason why it came about is because everything we do surrounds us being mentally tough. And the reason why I wrote the book is, believe it or not, in coaching or just in life, you will hear from your parents, stop crying. What are you crying about? Or uh, you can do it. Just be tough. You get that a lot as men, just be tough. Don't cry. Don't do this. So in my coaching and talking, players got to go through a lot of things, whether we're running sprints and you want them to do it in a certain time, or if they're a drill that they can't get. And we always say, you
Mhm.
got to be mentally tough. You got to be mentally tough. You got to be mentally strong. You got to be mentally tough. So it wasn't until one day I was sitting there with my players after a practice and I asked them, what does it mean to be mentally tough? And I got about 20 different answers. Then I
Okay.
asked, well, how do you be mentally tough? And no one can give an answer. And from my teaching background and everything, that's what we call checking for understanding. I realized these young ladies don't understand what it means to be mentally tough, nor do they know how to be mentally tough. And one thing that we always do as coaches, that myself and my staff did, basketball is a microcosm of life.
Right.
You deal with relationships, you deal with decision making, you're going to have ups and downs, you're going to have challenges, you're going to have roadblocks. So we will always say that if you can get through a basketball season or career, you can get through life. And what the mentally tough part of it is, it's understanding that you got to learn how to build relationships. You got to learn how to make decisions. You got to learn how to be organized and understanding your time and time management. All those things help you build a mental capacity to get through any type of adversity. And that's basically what it means by being mentally tough.
Hmm.
And we don't teach our kids that. We just say, be tough, be strong. Well, if I was to say to you, you know, and if it's just hypothetically, your employer of mine, you're not turning in projects on time, and I got to understand, well, what is the why? Well,
Right.
why aren't you turning
Right.
things on time? It could be a personal issue at home. It could be that you're not organized. It could be that you're not making the proper decisions. You're scattered everything. So the first step of being mentally tough is you got to understand where you're at. You got to understand where that person's at. And when you're dealing with a team, it can be different for many different players. So I was like, you know what? I need to write something about this and cover all these areas. And that's where the steps come from of understanding how to be mentally tough for everyday life. Because once you understand that, you know what? I'm very strong in understanding people and personalities and building relationships. But you know what? I am not strong enough in being organizing and making decisions. And I need help with that. And if I get stronger in this area, it's actually going to help me with building the relationships that I got with certain people. So that's pretty much where the book came from. And also understanding that it doesn't happen overnight. You got to be able to do this and break it down into smaller parts. That's where I talk about having small wins, small victories. You know, it can be simply as if I'm someone that's not organized, I'm going to start with three things every day. I'm gonna just put three things that I'm gonna do to make sure I get done every
Right.
day.
Right.
That's
Right.
a small step. You can't say that I'm gonna have 10 things I'm gonna accomplish all because things happen, things come up. You may not, but you smart small, you start small and build upon that. And that's where you get your consistency for your small wins, small
Mhm.
victories that lead to bigger victories and so on and so forth. And through doing that comes in the positive talk, the positive affirmation, and telling yourself, okay, this week I'm going to have these three tasks done. I did it, I knew I can do it. Next week, I'm going to work on four. Or I did these three well, but I can do them better. So I'm going to stay with these three and I'm going to do these three better. So it's where you are. And that's what we do as far as our business and helping people make decisions, become better so that they can be better for the people around them.
Right.
So,
Right. Wow, man, Greg, thank you so much for this conversation. I tell you, one of the things that helped me along my life because you mentioned
mhm,
something early on about, having a strong mom, a domineering mom, and exactly, I relate, okay?
mhm,
And so some of the things that I recognized for me, that strong independence, I was pushing away people, right?
yeah.
And then going and talking to somebody when I lost my wife, going through therapy and knowing, understanding the importance of that and how it helped me, right? So therapy, people look at as a negative thing, and yet this whole life coaching deal is becoming so popular, right? Why?
Mhm,
Because like therapy, it's somebody that can look from the outside and say, hey, I see you're doing this. Because when we're in the forest, a lot of the times we can't see the trees. So
mhm.
I appreciate the fact that you were open about the therapy and it transitions into you being a coach. So how do people get in touch with you? Tell a little bit about, what you're doing and what results led life is before we close out.
Oh, I appreciate it. Well, results-led life is where life coaching, personal development business. Where our tag is really we unlock your potential, help you solve problems so that you can live better, and more importantly, give you more time to do the things that you want. If you want to get in touch with me, you can follow me on any of the social media, YouTube. I got a podcast, Results Led Life. My YouTube channel, Results Led Life. I'm on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Results Led Life. More importantly, just send me a email or DM me so I can reach out to you and speak with you as we get started in this business and the content as you are doing as well. I'm out here to help people. God put us on this earth to serve, and that's what I'm here to do. I've always been in the service industry from teaching to coaching. I'm still doing it with my personal development as you're doing it. And we just got to learn to serve each other. And I think once we have that spirit of service and helping each other, we're going to go a long way.
Yeah, very good, very good. I appreciate that. And so you've been doing this a while, right? Tell us
Mhm.
about one win and something that you've helped, someone that you've helped to transform and get a big win.
Well, I would say that I had a former
And
player.
by the way, let me
Uh,
jump in. I'm sorry.
uh,
Greg has won national championships, by the way, as a
oh,
coach. So the brother knows what he's doing. Now, go ahead and tell us about other wins along the way with maybe individuals or groups other than your successful national championship winning teams.
well, I believe my biggest wins, the biggest joy that I get is when I see my players now that are also in the coaching ranks or that are now parents that come back, whether it's through Facebook or if it's homecoming, and they come back and tell me how we've helped them. And I say we because it's my coaching staff.
Right.
Yes, I was a head coach, but I have a coaching staff to get it done. And I have several players that are now coaching at the major college level that either played for
Right.
me and coached under me.
That
And for
coaching tree.
me,
Yeah.
yeah, the coaching tree. So that is big for me. And the other part is like I still teach as a trade, is just I have one student, and I'll be real quick with this. I got one student whose father taught at the school. And we were just sitting down one time and he saw me on the computer looking at finance stuff.
Okay.
And he started talking to me about investing and how do you invest and how you do certain things and what is good stocks to buy and everything. And we used to have conversations just like we're having right now. Last year, his father came to me and told me that not only he went to change his major when he went to college, he's in finance, he's doing finance. Now he's doing a lot of investing. And he's thankful to me because he used to talk to him, but he wouldn't listen. You know how we wouldn't listen to our parents. But I spoke to him and the light switch went on and he's loving it now. So things like that,
Okay.
you never know the impact that you have on people or the conversations that you have with people. It can be the smallest thing, but it can be the biggest thing for that person at that moment. And that's why God puts people in our lives and put us in a time and place so that we can be a benefit to somebody else. So that right there was very another impactful moment. There's plenty, but those two would stick out a lot for me right now.
Nice, nice, nice. That coaching tree and knowing that you are the example for someone else by just living your life and being the person that you are. I greatly appreciate that,
Yeah.
Greg. Um, are there any closing things that you want to say, or maybe as we're developing this be better than you conversation, right? Maybe a model that you live by or something that would be Greg's billboard.
Well, there's a motto I do live by. It's better to look ahead and prepare and look back and regret. So
Wait,
I,
wait, wait, wait. Run that by us again.
It's
Ah,
better to look ahead and prepare
okay.
rather than to look back and regret.
Okay. Okay.
So for me, that is you want to be able to look ahead and prepare for your future rather than look back with regrets. So you got to live for today. Tomorrow's not promised. We may think we're going to live forever, as we know that that may not be the case. So whatever you do today, make sure it's in preparation for the next day. Be a
Nice.
beneficial to yourself, be a beneficial to be a benefit to somebody else.
Nice.
So that's one motto that I live by. You know, time is valuable. We don't get that back. So make sure every second counts. Make sure that you're living for yourself, you're living for a purpose, and make sure you're always preparing so that you're not always looking back saying, I wish I could have, should have. You don't want to have those type of regrets. And like I said, do those things and you will definitely unlock your potential. You'll definitely solve problems, and more importantly, you'll live better.
Great. Thank you so much for dropping this information and sharing some of your life story and how you've been able to help people get results along the way, not just professionally, but personally by being the person that you are, man. I appreciate you. I appreciate you being here. And for all of you guys watching, man, know that what we're doing here is bringing hope closer to the heart so that you can see people that are quote unquote everyday normal people and not celebrities in fashion, sports, movies, and entertainment doing it You can do it. Why? Because you are enough. Peace, everybody.
Amen.